They told your grandparents that buying things would make them happy. Then they told your parents the same lie. Now they're telling you. 3 generations later, we're buried in stuff, drowning in debt, and more miserable than ever. Something is very wrong with this picture, and tonight we're going to find out exactly when the trap was set, who built it, and why you keep walking into it every single day. This isn't a story about saving money. This is a story about a heist that's been running for almost a century, and you're the mark. Let me take you back to a moment in history that changed everything. Picture this. It's 1929. The stock market just collapsed. Banks are failing. Factories are closing. Men in suits are jumping out of windows on Wall Street because the paper fortunes they built vanished overnight. The Great Depression has arrived, and it's going to squeeze America for more than a decade. People are standing in bread lines. Families are living in shanty towns made of cardboard and scrap metal. This is rock bottom. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's also where you can see the cracks in the foundation, and some very smart people were looking at those cracks, trying to figure out what went wrong. The answer they came up with would reshape everything about how you live your life today. Before the crash, America ran on a simple idea. You made things. You sold things. You bought what you needed. When your shoes wore out, you got them repaired. When your coat got old, you patched it. You saved money for emergencies. You lived within your means. This wasn't virtue. This was just how things worked. The economy was based on needs, not wants. But after 1929, a new kind of thinker emerged. Economists and business leaders started asking a dangerous question. What if the problem wasn't that we made too much? What if the problem was that people didn't buy enough? What if we could create an economy where people never stopped buying, where desire never ended, where the hunger was permanent? They called it consumer culture. We should call it what it really is, an economic system built on manufactured dissatisfaction. Now, you might be thinking this sounds like conspiracy theory nonsense. Let me give you some names. Edward Bernays, nephew of Sigmund Freud. He took his uncle's theories about human psychology and turned them into a weapon for corporations. In 1928, just before the crash, he pulled off one of the most successful propaganda campaigns in history. He convinced women to smoke cigarettes by calling them torches of freedom. He turned a health hazard into a symbol of liberation. That's not advertising. That's social engineering. After the Depression ended, Bernays and people like him got to work rebuilding America. But they weren't just rebuilding the economy. They were rebuilding the American mind. They understood something that your grandparents never saw coming. If you could link products to identity, to status, to psychological needs, you could make people buy things they didn't need, with money they didn't have, to impress people they didn't like. Let's jump forward. 1956. America's booming. The war is over. The boys came home. The suburbs are spreading like a rash across the countryside. And something new is happening in those suburbs. Something that would have seemed insane to someone living in 1930. Planned obsolescence. Here's how it worked. A group of industrial designers and businessmen sat in a room and made a calculated decision. They decided that products should be designed to fail. Not immediately. That would be too obvious. But after a specific period of time, just long enough that you'd blame yourself instead of the manufacturer. Your refrigerator dies after 7 years? Must be bad luck. Your car needs major repairs after 5 years? That's just how cars are. Your phone stops working after 2 years? Time for an upgrade. But it wasn't bad luck. It wasn't just how things are. It was a deliberate strategy. Brooks Stevens, an industrial designer, gave a speech in 1954 where he literally defined planned obsolescence as instilling in the buyer the desire to own something a little newer, a little better, a little sooner than is necessary. Read that again. A little sooner than is necessary. They knew you didn't need it. They knew it was wasteful. They knew it was manipulative. They did it anyway. Because growth became the only thing that mattered. Not sustainability, not quality, not human happiness. Just growth, more products, more sales, more consumption, forever. And here's where it gets even darker. They didn't just make products fail. They made you feel like a failure if you weren't constantly upgrading. The advertising industry, which had learned its tricks from Bernays, went into overdrive. Television brought commercial messages directly into your living room. Magazines sold you images of the perfect life, always just one purchase away. Billboards reminded you of everything you were missing every time you drove to work. The message was always the same. You are incomplete, you are inadequate, you are falling behind, but this product, this car, this appliance, this fashion, this lifestyle will fix you. It will make you whole. It will make you acceptable. It will make you happy. Except it never did. Because the moment you bought the thing, they showed you the next thing. The treadmill never stopped. The finish line kept moving. You were running a race with no end, competing in a game you couldn't win. Now let's talk about what this did to the American family. In 1950, most households had one income. Dad worked, Mom stayed home. The single paycheck covered a house, a car, food, savings, and raising multiple kids. Not because wages were so high, but because expectations were manageable. You bought a house and lived in it for 30 years. You bought a car and drove it until it died. You bought clothes and wore them until they wore out. Fast forward to today. Most households need two incomes. Both parents work. And despite earning more combined than a single breadwinner did in 1950, but adjusted for inflation, they have less financial security. They're drowning in debt. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They're terrified of unexpected expenses. What happened? The beast got bigger, and it got hungrier. The economy stopped being a tool to serve human needs. Humans became a tool to serve the economy. Your job isn't to live a good life anymore. Your job is to consume, to keep the machine running, to keep the growth going. And if you can't afford it, don't worry. They invented credit cards. Let's pause here and appreciate the genius of the credit card. Before credit cards became widespread in the 1960s and 70s, you could only buy what you could afford. This created a natural limit on consumption. But natural limits are bad for growth, so they eliminated the limit. Now you could buy today and pay tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, with interest. The credit card was sold as freedom, as convenience, as sophistication. You're not poor, you're leveraged. You're not in debt, you're building credit. The language changed to hide what was really happening. You weren't borrowing money, you didn't have to buy things you didn't need. You were managing your cash flow and maximizing your rewards points. And here's the really sick part. They made debt normal, expected, even necessary. You can't buy a house without debt. You can't buy a car without debt. You can't go to college without debt. They took the one thing that every previous generation understood was dangerous, being in debt to someone else, and they made it the foundation of modern life. They made it so you couldn't participate in society without putting yourself in chains. Think about what that means. Your grandfather could walk away from the system. He could save up cash, buy a small house outright, grow some food, and tell the banks and the corporations to go to hell. You can't do that. The system has you locked in before you even start. You need debt to get educated. You need debt to get shelter. You need debt to get transportation. And once you have debt, you need income. And once you need income, you need to keep your job. And once you need to keep your job, you can't take risks. You can't make waves. You can't opt out. The trap isn't just psychological anymore. It's structural. It's legal. It's financial. They built a world where freedom requires permission, and permission costs money you don't have. Now, here's where most people make a mistake. They blame themselves. They think if they were smarter, more disciplined, more successful, they'd be winning the game. They wouldn't be stressed. They wouldn't be broke. They wouldn't feel empty despite having a closet full of clothes and a garage full of stuff. But you're not losing because you're weak. You're losing because the game is rigged. Let me show you how rigged it is. Every year, corporations spend over $300 billion on advertising in the United States alone. $300 billion. That's more than the entire economic output of most countries on this planet. And what are they buying with that money? Access to your brain. They're studying psychology. They're tracking your behavior. They're running experiments to figure out exactly which colors, which words, which images will bypass your rational mind and trigger an emotional response. They know that if they show you happy people using their product, your brain will associate the product with happiness. They know that if they create a sense of urgency, you'll buy without thinking. They know that if they make you feel insecure, you'll reach for your wallet to fill the void. This isn't capitalism. This is psychological warfare, and you're outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. But here's what they don't want you to know. The weapon only works if you let it. Every advertisement is asking for your attention. Attention is consent. If you don't give them your attention, they have no power, and that terrifies them because their entire system depends on you participating. It depends on you believing that buying things will make you happy. It depends on you staying on the treadmill. Let me tell you about a man named Vance Packard. In 1957, he wrote a book called The Hidden Persuaders. It was an expose of the advertising industry's manipulation tactics. It became a bestseller because people were starting to wake up. They were starting to see the strings. But here's what's crazy. Everything Packard warned about in 1957 has gotten 10 times worse, and somehow we're more asleep than ever. Why? Because the system adapted. When people started questioning advertising, the industry made it invisible. Native advertising, influencer marketing, product placement, sponsored content. They stopped running commercials and started creating culture. Your favorite TV show? Paid for by brands. Your favorite celebrity? Paid to wear brands. Your favorite YouTuber? Paid to recommend brands. The advertisement became the entertainment. You can't avoid it because you can't see it anymore. And social media took it to another level entirely. Now you're not just consuming advertisements. You're creating them. Every time you post a picture of your new purchase, you're advertising for the brand. Every time you check in at a restaurant, you're advertising for the restaurant. They turned you into an unpaid marketing department, and you do it for free, because it feels like self-expression. It feels like connection. But really, you're just another node in the network, spreading the virus of dissatisfaction to everyone you know. The algorithm knows what you want before you do. It knows you're more likely to buy when you're sad. It knows you're more likely to impulse shop late at night. It knows exactly when to show you that ad for the thing you mentioned once in passing. It's listening, it's watching, it's learning, and it's using everything it learns to extract money from you. Think about the last time you opened Instagram or TikTok. How long did you stay there? An hour? 2 hours? And how many products did you see in that time? How many things did you suddenly want that you'd never even thought about before you opened the app? That's not an accident. That's the algorithm doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's feeding you desire. It's manufacturing want. It's creating problems you didn't know you had so it can sell you solutions you don't need. And the worst part? You know this is happening. Somewhere deep down, you know you're being manipulated. You know that buying that thing won't actually make you happy. You know that your life was fine before you saw the ad. But you buy it anyway. Because the manipulation isn't aimed at your logical brain. It's aimed at something deeper. Something older. something that doesn't care about logic. Your brain is still running on hardware that was designed for the African savanna 50,000 years ago. Back then, status meant survival. Being part of the tribe meant not dying alone in the wilderness. Having more resources than the next guy meant your kids would eat when his kids starved. Those instincts are still there, and the advertisers know it. They're exploiting evolutionary psychology that's older than civilization itself. When you see someone with a nicer car, a bigger house, newer clothes, your caveman brain screams that you're falling behind, that you're losing status, that you're in danger. And the only way to quiet that scream is to buy the thing, to catch up, to keep up, to get ahead. Except you can never get ahead, because there's always someone with more, always someone with newer, always someone with better. The hedonic treadmill. Psychologists figured this out decades ago. No matter what you buy, no matter what you achieve, your happiness level returns to baseline within a few months. The new car thrill lasts about 3 months. Then it's just your car. The new house excitement lasts maybe 6 months. Then it's just your house. The new phone feels amazing for a week. Then it's just your phone. But the payment, the debt, that lasts for years. You're paying real money for temporary feelings. You're trading hours of your life, days of your life, years of your life, for a dopamine hit that fades faster than a sunset. And then you do it again, and again, and again, because the system is designed to keep you hungry forever. So what's the alternative? How do you opt out of a system that surrounds you, that's embedded in the infrastructure of modern life, that's been running for almost a century? Here's the truth they don't want you to hear. You can't fix this by shopping better. Buying organic doesn't make you free. Shopping local doesn't make you free. Buying sustainable products just means you're consuming with a cleaner conscience. But you're still consuming. You're still feeding the beast. You're just feeding it vegetables instead of meat. The only way out is to stop playing the game entirely. And that sounds extreme because we've been conditioned to think that participation equals existence. That if you're not consuming, you're not living. But that's the lie. That's the core of the whole con. Let me paint you a different picture. Imagine waking up without an alarm because you don't need to rush to a job you hate to pay for things you don't need. Imagine having a closet with 10 items of clothing that you actually like instead of 100 items you never wear. Imagine living in a small space that you own instead of a large space that owns you. Imagine having time, real time, time to think, time to create, time to be bored, time to figure out who you actually are instead of who the advertisements told you to be. This isn't poverty. This is freedom. But they trained you to confuse the two. The minimalist movement figured this out. The FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, figured this out. People living in vans figured this out. People homesteading in the middle of nowhere figured this out. They all discovered the same secret. The amount of money you need to survive is shockingly small if you stop trying to impress people you don't like. Here's a number that will blow your mind. The average American household spends about $65,000 a year. But if you cut out all the stuff you don't actually need, if you eliminate the status purchases and the impulse buys and the keeping up with the Joneses, you can live a comfortable life on $20,000 to $30,000 a year. Maybe less. That's not a typo. You could cut your expenses in half, maybe more, and not actually lose anything that matters. What would that mean? It would mean you could work half as much, or retire decades earlier, or take a job you actually care about that pays less, or start a business, or travel, or just exist without the constant anxiety of needing more money to pay for more stuff to fill the void that the last stuff didn't fill. But here's the hard part. Opting out comes with a cost, not a financial cost, a social cost, because we live in a culture where your worth is measured by what you own. where success is defined by how much you consume, where freedom means having more choices at the store. When you step off the treadmill, people think you're crazy. They think you failed. They think you gave up. Your family will question you. Your friends will distance themselves. Your coworkers will pity you because you're holding up a mirror to their choices and they don't like what they see. Your contentment with less makes them uncomfortable with their need for more. Your freedom makes their chains visible, and instead of examining their own lives, they'll tell you that you're the one who's wrong. You didn't fail. You woke up. There's a difference. Let me be clear about something. This isn't about living in a cave and eating dirt. This isn't about suffering for the sake of ideology. This is about reclaiming your life from a system that was designed to steal it. Every dollar you don't spend is an hour you don't have to work. Every purchase you don't make is a decision you take back from the machine. Every advertisement you ignore is a small rebellion against the people who think they own your attention. The system survives on your compliance. It needs you to believe you need more. It needs you to stay distracted. It needs you to keep running. The moment you stop, the moment you look around and realize you already have enough, the whole thing starts to crack. And they know this. That's why they fight so hard to keep you asleep. That's why every movie, every show, every song reinforces the same message. Consumption equals happiness. Status equals worth. More equals better. They're terrified of what happens if enough people wake up and realize it's all a lie. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, buy nothing except food and absolute necessities. No clothes, no gadgets, no entertainment, no treats, nothing. And watch what happens. Watch how your brain tries to convince you that you need things. Watch how the cravings hit. Watch how the advertisements suddenly seem louder. You'll feel it, the withdrawal. Because that's what it is. You're addicted. We all are. And the first step to breaking any addiction is admitting you have one. At the end of those 30 days, you'll know something important. You'll know the difference between what you need and what you've been trained to want. And that knowledge is dangerous. That knowledge is power. That knowledge is freedom. The beast is hungry. It's always been hungry. But it can't eat if you don't feed it. And the beautiful thing, the thing that keeps me up at night with hope instead of dread, is that the beast isn't real. It's a story we tell ourselves. It's a collective hallucination we all agreed to believe in. And the moment you stop believing, it disappears. Not for everyone, but for you. And that's where it starts. One person opts out, then another, and slowly, quietly, the spell breaks. The machine stutters. The system cracks, because it was never as strong as it pretended to be. It was only strong because we gave it our strength. We can take it back anytime we want. Your grandparents were sold a lie. Your parents were sold a lie, and now they're trying to sell it to you, but you don't have to buy it. Not anymore. Not ever again. The trap was set almost a century ago, but you have the key. You've always had the key. You just forgot where you put it. It's time to remember. It's time to walk out. It's time to stop feeding the beast and start feeding yourself. Your time, your attention, your life. Take it back. All of it. Right now.